Hey you guys, it's your girl Shawnee Mac. I'm back once again, and we're going to talk about some really good, interesting things today. We're going to find out about who is Lilith, aka the Screeching Owl. We have heard about her through history, through the biblical text, and also we're going to find out about her influence with the people in the world. So sit back, stay tuned. We're going to cover scripture, and we're going to get into, of course, our already documented videos that are on record that are talking about this, and then we're going to go into some interesting new stuff. So stay tuned, sit back, and let's go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's check out 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7 to 8. And it says, "For the mystery of iniquity doeth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming." So let's get into understanding what is being discussed here before we check out our video. Let's go.
All the world knows the story of Adam and Eve as told in Genesis. But few people know the story that is not found there, that of Lilith, the mysterious first wife of Adam. After God created Adam, he said, "It is not good for man to be alone." He then created a woman from the earth, as he had created Adam himself, and called her Lilith. Two texts, excluded from the Bible, tell her story in detail. The first is called the Zohar, also known as the Book of Splendor, probably written in the 13th century. The other, called the Alphabet of Ben Sira, is a collection of writings compiled in the Middle Ages. Though both are medieval, they are said to rest on traditions dating back into antiquity. According to these traditions, Lilith was Adam's first wife, created before Eve.
At the very beginning, it wasn't just Adam who was created from the dust of the ground. Adam and his mate, his partner, Lilith, were co-created from the same dust, the same ground, at the same time, separate and equal. Unfortunately, Adam didn't quite see it that way, and the time came when he began to insist that Lilith be subservient to him. "Lie beneath me, woman," he said. She refused.
That the reason Lilith was rejected as Adam's wife was because she insisted on equality.
Lilith decided at that moment to pronounce the divine name, 4 letters in Hebrew which spell the name of God, Yud, He, Vav, He, which are never to be vocalized or pronounced. But when she pronounced them, this gave her such great power that she flew away into the heavens.
According to Ben Sira, 3 angels were dispatched to bring Lilith back, but to no avail. Said the Holy One, "If she agrees to come back, it is good. If not, she must permit 100 of her children to die every day." They told her God's word, but she did not wish to return. Lilith having gone for good, the alternative texts describe God presenting Adam with a second wife, Eve.
Adam's second wife, whom he now demands from God, Eve, is taken from his rib, not created from the ground at the same time. So he is allowed to say, "Submit to me, wife," and she is supposed to do it.
Cast out of the garden, Lilith became an evil spirit, doomed to lose 100 of her own offspring each day as punishment for her defiance. She would take a desperate revenge.
She would henceforth afflict the children of Adam's second wife, to afflict pregnant women, to afflict newborns, and even to molest young men who sleep alone, thereby spawning her race of demonic children.
This reference to Lilith as a demon provides a clue to the origin of the text. Lilith herself appears to be a monstrous creature dating from prehistoric times. Carvings thought to portray her as such have been found in Egypt, Sumeria, Babylonia, and Greece.
There's reference to her in an ancient Babylonian relief sculpture that pictures a woman with bird talons flanked by owls, who is connected with an ancient goddess known as Lilith, or Lilith. The root suggests night. The Hebrew word Laila means night. So there's an idea that she's a night demon, perhaps a blood-sucking night demon of some kind.
Lilith is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible and in some translations of Isaiah in the Christian Old Testament, which reads, "There too Lilith shall repose and find a place to rest. There shall the owl nest and lay and hatch and brood in its shadow."
That's the solitary mention of Lilith in Isaiah. She's part of a list of various characters, all of whom are nefarious, all of whom don't seem to be the kind of people that you'd want godly people to associate with. If they had backstories, we've since lost them.
But how did Lilith get from one mention in Isaiah to the center of the story of Adam and Eve? The answer lies in the Jewish tradition of Midrash.
When you read the Bible, you find missing pieces in characters you know well, and you find also names that have no story at all. When the rabbis come across an unidentified person in the Bible who has no history, they always try to relate it to something else in the Bible.
Rabbinical scholars in the ancient world would pore over the sacred writings, looking for clues or coded references in order to fill in these gaps.
And sometimes it's the coincidence of two similar words being used in the same place, or two similar incidents. Sometimes we don't see the basis because we don't read the text in the original with the care that they did. But they never believe that God just drops in someone and says nothing about them. The rabbinic traditions that fill in the gaps in the Bible are called midrash. And midrash comes from a Hebrew word that means to root out or to investigate.
It was an apparent discrepancy in Genesis that first led ancient rabbinical scholars to expand the story of Lilith through Midrash. In it, there exist two different versions of God's creation of woman. The first suggests a simultaneous formation with that of the man. So God created man in his own image, male and female he created them. The second comes a few pages later. God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep, and while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs. Then the Lord God made a woman.
There are two stories of how a woman is created in the Bible. Rabbinic tradition saw the first story as the creation of a different woman.
Sometime in antiquity, the rabbinical scholars tried to reconcile the two versions in Genesis. They wanted to know exactly who the unnamed first woman was. Eventually, they linked her with a female demon mentioned in Isaiah, and so they created a text that connected the two.
Human beings have a powerful creative impulse. And if you say to them, here's this story and it's done, the first thing they want to do is say, no, it's not done. I have a great idea about a way in which it could be continued. We're reading the artwork, the masterworks of ancient Jewish writers who needed to express themselves.
It was Lilith, they wrote, who refused the will of both Adam and God, and was turned into a demon, a creature of the night, a devourer of sexual and natal essences. And it was this tradition of Midrash that the Zohar and Ben Sira would draw upon and expand. They would paint Lilith as the succubus, the seducer in the night who would forever be blamed for the nocturnal emissions of unsuspecting men. Lilith, it was said, could kill an infant in the womb or in the cradle. These are atavistic terrors, reflecting legends that were old even when the Bible stories were first written down.
Stories about a Lilith-type character always existed from the first firesides. Lilith takes the mythological space of the evil woman, which is a space that exists in almost every series of mythologies. Part of it is the discomfort with sexuality, and part of it is the human imagination creating devils, demons, all sorts of difficulties to explain evil in the world. Whatever fear people had about death of children, which was very common in the ancient world, that got put on Lilith also, because clearly That wasn't God's will. It had to be some malign, evil force that was taking their children away.
Throughout history, Lilith has been feared, especially in Kabbalistic and Orthodox circles, where amulets are still worn to protect the wearers against her venom. But her story, that of an evil, powerful woman, has found no place in either the Jewish or Christian canons.
What made, in particular, male religious leaders so uncomfortable about Lilith was that she was associated with seduction, and also that she was associated with full equality. For thousands of years, there was no equality between male and female religious figures and religious leaders. In Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, any established religious tradition.
Brothers and sisters, let's get into this work. Let's understand first. Why did I quote 2 Thessalonians 2:7 and 2:8? Because there is a mystery to a lot of the iniquity that's going on in the world, and a lot of people do not understand where the source is necessarily coming from. And in order for us to get to a true enlightenment of ourselves, who we are, our source, what's been going on, we have to go to what we know, what was written, what was documented before everything else came about. So, like I said, we're going to do some little digging, and we're going to understand 2 Thessalonians 2:7 and why I chose to use these two scriptures. Now, it says, for the mystery of iniquity, so we have to understand the mystery. And the mystery is to shut the mouth, okay? So people whose silence imposed by initiation into religious rites. So we know that we have a lot of those around the world: Freemasonry, Illuminati, all types, Eastern Stars, Skull and Bones, the Knights Templar, the Jesuits, just, you guys get an idea of basically what I'm saying. So these people know the truth. They know who we are. They know who everyone is. Primarily who this Bible mainly speaks of, that it's trying to protect. And it's trying to protect not only just a group of people, but mainly a specific group of people. Now, like I said before, genetically you can be of Yasharael, and that's fine, but at the same time, judgment is also coming to Yasharael once more, once Yahusha comes back. And if we're not ready for it, and we're not prepared for it, we're not realizing the snares of Satan, Lucifer, the devil, Lilith, all of these entities that serve for their own purpose, we're destined for the lake of fire. And that'll be the second death. So who want to die twice, honestly? And the second death is going to be for eternity. Now, you will never live again. Now, that will be falling into of iniquity. Doeth already work, and only he who letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. So, understand iniquity, illegality. That is a violation of the law. What law? The law, statutes, and commandments. Primarily the law is what it's speaking of right now. Generally, wickedness. People who are just purely wicked. That is iniquity. That is a transgression of the law, unrighteousness. So, we have been going through understanding what wickedness is. If you looked at my other videos, you guys will know and understand exactly what these words stand for inside the Bible. So we're going to go to Strong's G459, which is in your Greek. And it's just saying simply lawless. Negatively, it says a Gentile and a wicked one. So you guys have to understand that Gentiles don't just fall in genetics. Gentiles, just like of Yasharael, aka who they call the Jews. Not the Jews that's over there, but the real Jews that is being spoken of in the Bible. They have become Gentiles as well because they are worshiping this specific entity that we are going to be going over today. So you got to understand that, if you live your life without law, you're a transgressor. You're unlawful and you are wicked. So understand that it's so many levels to this. So when you hear keywords like this is so that you would understand exactly what is being told to you in the text. And it says to do of already work. So someone who's been quiet about doing wicked things doeth already have what? Work? Okay, well, what kind of work? That is interesting. Energio. That's interesting because it sounds like energy. Okay. Says to be active. Sounds like energy. Your might. That takes energy. Shoot forth self. That takes energy. Work. Okay. Let's go to G1756. And it says operative. So you have a job as an operative. You're highly active. Says to work. As an occupation, a laborer. Okay? A laborer. So this could be anyone who has a specific job to seek to do wicked. If that is your mission, the time you wake up to be a liar and be an unjust person, to show wickedness in every form that is against law. Everything that is wicked is just against the law, period. There is no good wicked. There's no such thing. So if that's what your job is every day, you can count yourself into being in a lake of fire. Okay? This stuff isn't being made up. This stuff has been written before. What everybody see and know is to be written. Okay? Let's jump down to 8. Okay? Because then they're going to be taken out of the way. And then shout the wicked. Okay? Those same lawless negative people. Okay? Be revealed whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. So let's understand here. We're going to go here. And then shout the wicked. We know. Bad people. Be revealed whom the Lord. Let's see who. They're talking about the supremacy. Lord, Master, Sir, God as a respectful title. So this is who people call God. Shall consume. The wicked don't know the Most High name. So, that will make a lot of sense. Or it could be someone on those kind of levels that Yah has given authority to. Because it was some stuff I ran across in the scriptures where it talked about he was going to have a feast and it was going to be, not so pleasant to, person that's going to get consumed. So, it's definitely going to be a consumption with the spirit of his mouth and shall destroy. Okay? To abolish, to cease, to cumber, to deliver, to destroy, to do away with the brightness of his coming, okay? The brightness is a manifestation. That's him, that is the Mashiach, that they call Christ, past or future, because he's in both places at the same time, okay? His appearance is brightness, okay? So you guys now understand what this text is saying, that all the bad people be revealed, whom the Lord, the highest ranking of them all, shall consume, meaning not to just eat like food, okay? With the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness. So what he's going to say and what his appearance alone is going to destroy the wicked. Because the wicked is going to be so fearful because they just thought they was doing something, serving Satan. So we're going to get into some interesting stuff today, y'all. We're going to get into it, okay? So you guys see the images here. The Baphomet sitting there on that throne and everything. And people getting tortured and things like that. And it's just really horrible and bad, like the torture of it. Like the pictures does no justice compared to what the text actually says. So first, we're going to go and get off into Legends of the Jews, chapter 1 and 3. So hang tight. Okay, brothers and sisters, let's jump into Legends of the Jews, chapter 1 and 3. And it says, in 13, it says, Methuselah. After the translation of Enoch, Methuselah was proclaimed ruler of the earth by all the kings. He walked with the footsteps of his father, teaching truth, knowledge, and fear of God to the children of men all his life, and deviating from the path of rectitude, neither to the right nor to the left. He delivered the world from thousands of demons, the prosperity of Adam, which he had begotten with Lilith, that she-devil of she-devils. These demons and evil spirits, as often as they encountered a man, had sought to injure and even slay him until Methuselah appeared and supplicated the mercy of God. He spent 3 days in fasting, and then God gave him permission to write the infallible name upon his sword, wherewith he slew 94 myriads of the demons in a minute, until Agaramus, the firstborn of them, came to him and entreated him to desist, at the same time handing the names of the demons and imps over to him. And so Methuselah placed their kings in iron fetters, while the remainder fled away and hid themselves in the innermost chambers and recesses of the ocean. Sounds like Bay Moth, you guys, okay? And it is on account of the wonderful sword by means of which the demons were killed that he was called Methuselah. He was a man that he composed 230 parables in praise of God for every word he uttered. When he died, the people heard a great commotion in the heavens, and they saw 900 rows of mourners corresponding to the 900 orders of the Manasseh. Mishana, however that's pronounced. I messed that up, y'all. Which he had studied, and tears followed from the eyes of the holy beings down upon the spot where he died. Seeing the grief of the celestials, the people on earth also mourned over the demise of Methuselah, and God rewarded them therefore. He added 7 days to the time of grace which he had ordained before bringing destruction upon the earth by a flood of waters. And we know that they're talking about the great deluge. So let's jump into some more scriptures to understand more. All right, brothers and sisters, let's jump off now over into Legends of the Jews, chapter 4, verse 1 and 6. It says, the first step in preparation for war was the selection of spies to guard against a repetition of what had happened to Moses, Joshua, chosen as his messengers, Caleb, and Phinehas, on whom he could place dependence in all circumstances. They were accompanied on their mission by 2 demons, the husband of the she-devils, Lilith and Mahalah. When Joshua was planning his campaign, these devils offered their service to him. They proposed that they be sent out to reconnoiter the land. Joshua refused the offer, but formed their appearance so frightfully that the residents of Jericho were struck with fear of them. In Jericho, the spies put up with Rahab. She had been leading an immoral life for 40 years. But at that approach of Israel, she paid homage to the true God, lived the life of a pious convert, and as the wife of Joshua, she became the ancestress of 8 prophets and the prophetess Huldah. She had opportunity in her own house of beholding the wonders of God. When the king's bailiffs came to make their investigations, and Rahab wanted to conceal the Israelitish spies, Phinehas claimed her with the words, I am a priest, and priests are like angels, visible when they wish to be seen, invisible when they do not wish to be seen. Okay, you guys, so now we're about to read who Lilith manifests herself into down the line after everything was said and done. And Solomon was here on the scene, and this is where we're going to jump into Legends of the Jews once again, 2, 3, and 23. And it says, among the adversaries that assailed him was Lilith, the Queen of Sheba. She lived at a great distance from his residence. It took her and her army 3 years to travel from her home to his. She fell upon his oxen and his asses and took possession of them, after slaying the men to whose care Job had entrusted them. One man escaped alone, wounded and bruised. He had only enough life in him to tell Job the tale of his losses, and then he fell down dead. The sheep which had been left unmolested by the Queen of Sheba were taken away by the Chaldeans. Job's first intention was to go to war against these murderers. But when he was told that some of his property had been consumed by fire from heaven, he desisted and said, "If the heavens turn against me, I can do nothing." Okay, you gotta shake the wine glass up off of this. So, okay, brothers and sisters. So now we have an idea of what's happening here, and there is more I'm going to cover, even though I don't really have to, because it kind of like broke down into the video that I showed you guys. But I want to speed it up into more of a current time now and let you guys see. So it's going to be a quite long video, so you guys need to get y'all something to drink, get y'all something to snack on, because we are here, and we're going to do a part 2 to this one as well. I'm not finished, but I want to push it up to current times so that you guys can see that she has a bloodline here as well, and that there are people who are still to this day honoring her, making blood sacrifices, burning onto Moloch, who is the Screech owl or whatever. You know, at one point it was the bull and everything. Now they changed it over to the owl, and this is what you see them doing over there on Bohemian Grove and stuff. So let's get into it.
We'll take a break here.
Our story begins in Northern California over 100 years ago, when locals began to spread rumors of bizarre occult rituals being conducted in the ancient redwood groves of Sonoma County. As the decades passed, it became clear these incredible stories had a basis in truth, and their source was a 2,700-acre private club known as the Bohemian Grove. Then, in a time period between the mid-1970s and the early 1990s, scores of reporters attempted to infiltrate the Grove. All attempts were unsuccessful. Grove security identified them, threw them out for trespassing, or in some cases, had the local police arrest them. To many, it seemed the Grove's secrets would never become public. All of that changed on July 15th, 2000, when we ripped aside the veil of secrecy and were successfully able to penetrate the Bohemian Grove on their high holy day and videotape the cremation of care ritual. Finally, we learned that the Grove was only one chapter in a larger, worldwide secret society hell-bent on bringing in a one-world government. What would the people do if they knew that the majority of the leaders in the corporate world, as well as government, were deep occultists? Before the year 2000 and our successful penetration of the Grove, the mainstream media denied that rituals were indeed taking place there, and said that elite from all over the world were simply meeting in secret to have a good time. After the footage we had shot of the cremation of care ritual aired first in England and then in the United States on national TV, the mainstream media changed their tune. The San Francisco Chronicle had previously refused to report on the Grove. After our infiltration, they wrote as many as 5 articles a year detailing the bizarre activities that were taking place inside the Grove, including the fact that top presidential advisor Karl Rove had tapped Arnold Schwarzenegger inside the Grove to run for governor on California's recall ballot. Even the vaunted New York Times reported on the Bohemian Grove, but attacked us for sneaking in. The New York Post was one of many national publications to report on all of the homosexual activities going on at the Grove. The Post reported in its page 6 gossip column that Chad Savage, gay porno star, was, quote, servicing the moguls at the Grove. But a disturbing theme ran through the body of the reportage. Okay, it's true. The elite meet behind closed doors, and there's gay porn stars and gay prostitutes being shipped in like beluga caviar. What's the big deal? Let's just let them have their privacy. And so they have lakeside chats calling for world government. Really, they're not bad people. The people we should watch are those that are exposing it. They're really dangerous weirdos. Of all the hit pieces that we've been victims of, the worst was conducted on national television by Brian Lamb, the director of C-SPAN, and some shifty-eyed professor they dug up, who appeared to be flashing Masonic hand signs, while he tried to eviscerate our character by implying that there wasn't even a ritual at all. Why, Alex Jones claims they do this ritual. Meanwhile, the Bohemian Grove has gone public to the newspapers, admitting they conduct rituals.
Overnight, they had a gentleman on by the name of Alex Jones, who has a talk show in Texas, I think, and it's heard in communities around the United States. And he was talking about the Bohemian Grove Club, as if that's where it all happens. That's where all the decisions are made. There are thousands of people go there, and there's some kind of a ceremony surrounding an owl and all that. Have you followed this at all?
Yes, I have, even though the show is on past my bedtime. But Alex Jones has been talking about this for quite a while. The Bohemian Grove, of course, is a privately owned redwood grove up in Sonoma County, north of San Francisco, where every summer there is a get-together of the wealthy and well-placed, all male, who get together for general cavorting, socializing, lectures, symposia, and so on, in an atmosphere that is completely removed from public scrutiny. Alex Jones and some others have suggested for a long time that there are all sorts of nefarious rituals that go on, human sacrifices that were being committed by the elite who attend these gatherings.
A lot of things people feel are organized behind the scenes with the Bilderbergers, the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Masons. You can keep going down the list, and the Illuminati, One World Government, New World Order, Skull and Bones. You've got more information on that than I do, so call us at the top of the hour and talk to our guests about that, and we'll try to sort it out. Define Illuminati.
The Illuminati were a small quasi-Masonic group founded in Central Europe in 1776.
There was a surprising development in the summer of 2005. A Bohemian Grove employee decided to videotape some of the activities in the Grove and to give us the footage. The footage you're seeing was shot on a tiny digital camera, so the quality isn't the best, but the images are powerful. The individual that gave us this footage asked that we not release their name. Our source was able to confirm what we had seen in internal Bohemian Grove documents and annals, that the elite of the elite attend the Grove. Our source personally saw New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson in attendance, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, the famous newsman Walter Cronkite, and countless other luminaries. Without giving away the identity of our source, we can tell you this. The most elite encampment within the Grove is Mandalay. Other members of the Grove were not even allowed to approach within 100 yards of this compound, swarming with Secret Service, valets, private French cooks, and private security men. In the compartmentalized system of the New World Order, Mandalay is an elite within an elite, at the very top of the pyramid's capstone.
Okay, brothers and sisters, we about to jump into the scriptures once again real quick. I want to pause it there because this was interesting that popped out. And it says, God now appeared to Moses, binding him, convey the following words to the people. You kindle my anger on account of the very benefits I conferred upon you. when I clove the sea for you, that you might pass through, while the Egyptians stuck in the loam at its bottom. You said to one another, in Egypt we trod loam, and he led us out of Egypt, only that we might again tread it. I gave you manna as food, which made you strong and fat, but you perceive of it, said, how come it to pass that 20 days a human being dies, if after 4 or 5 days he does not exert food he had taken? Surely we are doomed to die. When the spies came to Palestine, I arranged it so that as soon as they entered the city, its king or governor dies, in order that the inhabitants occupied with the burial of their ruler might not take account of the spies' presence and kill them. Instead of being thankful for this, the spies returned and reported, the land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof. To you I gave the Torah for your sake. I said to the angel of death, continue to hold sway over the rest of the world, but not over this nation that I have chosen as my people. Truly I have hopes that after all this you would sin no more, and like myself and the angels would live eternally without ever tasting death. You, however, in spite of the great opportunity that I offered you, conducted yourselves like Adam. Upon him also did I lay a commandment, promising him life eternal, on condition he observe it, but he brought ruin upon himself by trespassing my commandment and eating of the tree. Okay? Y'all hear this? So now y'all understanding why is things going down the way they are and what they're doing right now, and these people who still want to do what they want to do. They want to act like Adam. Okay? You can't. Upon him, it sounds like Adam, and upon him also I lay a commandment, promising him life eternal on condition he observed it. But he brought ruin upon himself by trespassing my commandment and eating of the tree. Now, that's where we left off. To him I said, dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. Similar was my experience with you. I said, you are angels, but you conducted yourselves like Adam in your sins, like men, okay? And hence, like Adam, you must die. I had thought and hoped you would follow example of the patriarchs, but you act like the inhabitants of Sodom. Who in punishment for their sin were consumed by fire. If continued God, turning to Moses, they suppose that I have need of swords or spears to destroy them. They are mistaken. As though the word I created the world, so can I destroy the world. But it, which would be a proper punishment for them, as though their words and their talk, they arrange me. See, look how deceiving Satan is. He's the most subtle, okay? Lilith is rolling in the same bucket. She took the choice to roll and do her own thing too, okay? So shall the world kill them, and thou shalt be their hire. So, all those who want to roll with Satan, that's what's going to happen. This is why people are getting sacrificed, because they're already making a blood contract to agree at some point their day is going to come, and they have sacrificed themselves already. So this is why they get the fame, the fortune, getting these nice fancy clubs and do all kind of wild shit like such as sodomy, like it's saying here, okay? For I will make of thee a greater nation and mightier than they, Moses said. If the chair with 3 legs could not withstand the moment of thy wrath, how then shall a chair that have but 1 leg endure? Thou art about to destroy the seed of 3 patriarchs. How then may I hope that my seed is to fare better? This is not the only reason for which thou shouldest preserve Israel, as there are other considerations why thou shouldest do so. Were thou to destroy Israel, the Edomites, Moabites, and all the inhabitants of Canaan would say that thou hadst done this only because thou were not able to maintain thy people, and therefore thou didst destroy them. These will furthermore declare that the gods of Canaan are mightier than those of Egypt, that thou hadst indeed triumphed over the river gods of Egypt, but that thou were not the peer of the rain gods of Canaan, worse even than this nation. The nations of the world will accuse thee of continuous cruelty, saying, he destroyed the generations of the flood through water. He raised the ground, the builders of the tower, as well as the inhabitants of Sodom. Okay, let me find my space again. Okay. And no better than there was the fate of the Egyptians, whom he drowned in the sea. Now he have also ruined Israel, whom he had called my firstborn, like Lilith, who, when she came, find no strange children, ought to slay her own. So did he slay his own son. Moses furthermore said, every pious man makes a point of cultivating a special virtue. Do thou also in the instance bring thy special virtue to bear. God, and what is my special virtue? Moses says, long-suffering, love, and mercy, for thou art wont to be long-suffering with them that kindle thy wrath, and to have mercy for them, and thy very mercy is thy strength best shown, meet out to thy children. Then justice is small measure only, but mercy is in great measure.
Things have changed in the last few years, the all-male encampment. Since its founding in 1872, no females have been allowed in. But under pressure, they've allowed women some jobs in parking cars and in the kitchens in special cloistered areas. Our source is male. We'll call him Kyle. He reported to us that it was a constant irritant inside the Grove, being asked by old men if he, quote, slept around and wanted to have some fun. During one of the festival's revelries, known as Gypsy Jazz, they paused to thank the author of the music. They talk about what a wonderful jazz player he was, but that sometimes he did hang around with women, and the crowd boos with disgust.
He disappeared from time to time, often with women. He thought stealing was fun.
The Grove's own internal annals brag that the Manhattan Project, or the plan to create the A-bomb, was hatched inside this building, known as the Chalet. The Strategic Defense Initiative, better known as Star Wars, was also the brainchild of Grove members and was born inside the Chalet. At the height of the Cold War, top Soviet dignitaries traveled to the Bohemian Grove for secret meetings with the heads of the U.S. government as well as corporate leaders. Our source worked at the Grove in the summer of 2004 and the summer of 2005, and he was able to obtain 2 program covers for the cremation of care ceremony, as well as a 2005 membership list, which reads like a who's who of U.S. and European elite. Former President Jimmy Carter, former President George Herbert Walker Bush, President Bush, Henry Kissinger, George Shultz. The list goes on and on. This is a video still of the sign at the entrance to the path to the Hillbilly Club where President Bush stays. Look at that happy little devil with his forked tail dancing and smiling and those sharp little teeth. Oh, it's so Christian. But again, President Bush had such a Christian name in Skull and Bones, Magog, or Satan's war leader. The Grove is dominated by Republicans, the supposed party of Christian conservative family values. But the Grove has its share of high-powered Democrats as well. It's also important to note that the Grove itself was founded in 1872 by West Coast journalists, and that the National Press Club adopted the iconography of the Grove for its Great Seal. There are three major icons used in the cremation of care ritual: Moloch, the owl idol, the curved staff carried by the high priest, and the eternal flame lamp, the Arabian-style lamp which the priest uses to ignite his torch, which he then uses to burn the human effigy care. Here are video stills of the effigy after it has been burned on the altar in the morning. Many researchers of the global elite believe that real sacrifices are going on at the Grove. When I filmed the ceremony in 2000, I saw no evidence of this. It looked like an effigy, and the Druid priests were easily able to pick it up and take it up the steps to the platform. Our inside source informs us that there are actually 4 effigies used in the ceremony. One brought in on the back of the wagon, another that's used behind the trees, another that's brought across by the Grim Reaper to the steps of the idol, and still another effigy that is placed on a black altar before Moloch, the demon god, and burned. And this is the first and only time that video has ever been shot inside of the owl idol. We can now confirm that the owl is metal with a stone facing. There are some more stills inside the Grove. Our social lives, going to the football game or the PTA, a little bit different than your average world leader or corporation chief. No, in their spare time, they worship Moloch and do mock human sacrifices. We just need to get used to that and accept them as our leaders. Think about it. If your neighbor was engaging in mock human sacrifices to Moloch, the demon idol that was worshipped all over the Mediterranean and the Middle East, would you let that neighbor walk your dog or house sit, or how about babysit your children, or be in control of the nuclear launch codes? Well, let me give you a revelation. They are in control of the national deficit, of Congress, of your bank account, of your local police department, and they see you as cattle, as their slaves.
All right, brothers and sisters, let's jump off into the book of Amos, chapter 5, verse 23. And this reminds me of what's here in the scriptures about that in particular. And it says, "Take thou away from me the noise of thy songs." Because, you know, they do a lot of singing there. So we're going to hear that noise with songs, okay? It's the second being female, okay? All right, you guys, it's a singer, okay? They're singing, okay? And it says, "For I will not hear the melody, none of the musical pieces or songs to be accompanied by an instrument," okay? So all these artists out here, they got their little songs on the radio, and they chanting stuff, and they're casting spells on you guys, trying to tell you guys, point, period, blank. It's all a setup. They're chanting things, and they have secret meanings and messages behind them, okay? 5 and 24 says, "But let judgment run down as waters, and righteousness as a mighty stream. Have ye offered unto me sacrifices?" Slaughter. Ain't that what they're doing? Slaughter. Oh, you guys will see it next. Flesh. Okay? Saying the flesh of an animal, by implication a sacrifice, the victim or the act, an offering, a sacrifice. So, let's tap off into it as the animal, okay, to kill, okay, because they're not putting animals up there. They're putting people up there, okay? So, he's saying here, "Have ye offered unto me sacrifice and offerings?" Okay? A sacrificial offering. Usually, what they say, bloodless and voluntarily. Did not tell you guys they are giving themselves. They already signed over to do what they do. They already signed their soul over. So they're already in it, okay? And it says that they does this in the wilderness. We know where Bohemian Grove sits, you guys. It sits right in the middle of the wilderness. And then you notice everything in California is burning up all around it but that, okay? And it says, and you guys got to remember when I showed you guys in my previous videos where I was showing you about the children of Israel once they had came out of the land of Egypt. And you guys seen that they were there for 40 years, okay? Oh, house of Israel, you were there for 40 years. Now we're here for 400 years, okay? You guys, come on. Us, the ones that's going to rule as gods, you know. Let's get our stuff together. We got things that the Most High is looking for us to be handling as far as getting ourselves together. And it says here in 26, but ye have borne the tabernacle, you know, an idolatrous booth of your Moloch, okay? A chief deity of the Amorites, okay? Molech, okay? They set up a king. They made a queen. That's the owl. That's the owl, you guys. That's reigning and ruling and giving these guys all this stuff because you guys seen in the previous video, she went around and got how she wanted to get down. So a lot of people saying it's a spirit of Jezebel out here. Nope. You got a bigger demon and her name is Lilith. And she's operating in a lot of women right now to subdue you men. Okay? Haven't you heard of it and seen it? You know it's called social media for a reason. I had to sip some wine off of that one, okay? Okay? And chewing. What's that? Okay? A statue, an idol, a heathen deity, Baal, pure. That is freaking what we were just looking at over in Bohemian Grove. That's what they're sacrificing to. Your images. The star. She's a, you know, everybody came down. She was created here. She's not from where we are. We got trapped, okay? Because we believed that at that point that we were going to start over. And I told y'all some weird stuff before that happened with me when I was a lot younger. And I haven't got a chance to tell you guys about my younger stories. But I will. And it makes a lot of sense with the biblical scriptures of some weird stuff that I did. I don't even think most people did as kids. And it says, of your God. It says, the stars of your God. Yeah. Who's your God? Elohim. The fallen angels. Well, look there. Okay? Which ye made to yourselves. That's what they do. They made them. You see it right there. Right on the right on your little screen. Therefore will I cause you to go into captivity beyond the Damascus, saith who? The Lord? Oh, Yahuwah, whose name is the God of hosts, the Elohim. Yahuwah is the Elohim of everybody. Regularly organized for a war and army. I told you guys, he got his people down here and they set up shop for war too. Boom! All right, let's get back into this video. Alex Jones tripping, but we got to thank his crazy ass, whether they paid him to do it or not. Thank you for letting us know, okay? Thank you. But let's jump back into this video.
They released this photo of a 1915 ritual. Here you have the hooded figure over the mock sacrifice. And here's a simulated hanging from 1908. In this picture, you see a photo from 1909 with what looks like public officials in attendance. A black boy is tied down to some type of table, and around him we see people in strange garb. I'll leave it to you to figure out what they're doing. In 2004, the Grove released this photo from 1934 of members in hoods. The Canaanite deity Moloch was worshipped in Greece, Babylon, and then later in Europe. It is normally symbolized by a bull or an owl or some type of horned beast, and children are sacrificed to it. It is the precursor of all modern death cults. And let's look at that deity they worship, Moloch, a Semitic deity mentioned in the Bible whose worship was marked by the human sacrifice of children. Here's a video still I shot while I was inside of the encampment. You see a human skull in effigy. I was able to get out of the cult compound with this program cover from the Cremation of Care. And right on the front, where a child would be burned, they had photoshopped in the image of a skeleton burning in the flames. What purpose does this all serve, having world leaders congregate and engage in an ancient Canaanite ritual of mock child sacrifice? It's a way of binding them together, whether it's George Herbert Walker Bush or Henry Kissinger or Ronald Reagan or Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan, who's been a member since 1984. It's about bringing them together. Nowhere is the origin of the cult more in evidence than in former German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt's own autobiography, Men and Powers, a political retrospective. He talks about how they have their own German groves where they do these rituals, these, quote, druidic rituals. But he says his favorite place to do the rituals is at Bohemian Grove. This is a book that you can get at the library written by him. He talks about the Trilateral Commission, the CFR, the Bilderberg Group, and world government. And he says that much of the decisions are made at the Bohemian Grove. We were able to obtain the internal annals of the Bohemian Grove from 1987 to 1996, a publication only given to members. And in it we see pictures of George W. Bush and his father, Newt Gingrich. We see all of these different famous individuals there at the Grove. Walter Cronkite, Jimmy Carter, Jack Kemp, Richard Milhouse Nixon. The list goes on and on. If you're still doubting reality, here is a November 1989 issue of Spy magazine. The Grove released photos of themselves dancing around dressed like women. And in the article, they admit that they do mock human sacrifices.
All right, brothers and sisters, so you guys heard it there first. So we're going to jump into Acts chapter 7 and 43, and it says, yea, ye took up the tabernacle. Okay, we talking about the tabernacle again. Okay, the shadow, literally or figuratively, darkness of error, of Moloch again, okay? Moloch, okay? See, it's still an idol. And the star. How many stars that you seen there? I told you where we came from. Why do you think they call themselves a star? Their energy source, like we read earlier, energy. Remember that, guys. That was at the beginning. Remember 2 Thessalonians? You guys remember? 2 Thessalonians 2 and 7. So now this goes back to the constellation. The stars are the constellation of your God, Remphan. So now we can chap into this, but we can see also that this is an Egyptian idol. We also know that it's a statue. We know that it's a heathen deity. Once again, Baal Peor, okay? It's a figure, okay? It's a stamp, a scar. We know about the stamps. Remember, I covered about the mark of the beast, okay? It leaves a scar also. These are people that, you know, that rock with this whole entity and the statue it worships or whatever. And that's exactly what they did. They had that young black boy on there who is a Israelite. They knew exactly who they were sacrificing, and they beat, smite, strike, and wound. But they killed that poor baby. He was dead. I don't think they put him on there. They killed him. Which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. Just not the Babylon y'all know, not the Babylon the Chaldean, okay? You know, the Babylon of confusion, you know, where we are right now, where they're doing all of that. We're speaking the tongue of Babel, okay? Do your research. That is Babylonian, including the Babylonian Empire. So those who are of that, a part of that, connected to that, came from that, past, present, future, everyone who is practicing Babylonian, all this Egyptian deity stuff. As you can see, everybody wants to say, oh, well, I'm Egyptian and yeah, get in tune with this and that. Go ahead. You know, you can play at these spirits and play this game at your own risk. That is all solely up to you. All I am doing is presenting the information for what it is and what the scriptures are talking about. And as you can see, those who did the very same things, they have always enslaved us, brothers and sisters. So please stop thinking that you are the oppressor, because you are not. You do not worship or follow the same entities as these people did from these nations, okay? Let's get back into this video.
The article went on to show artist renditions of the Moloch idol, as well as discussing how they bus in male prostitutes and how AIDS was a big problem. Then a New York Post article in July of 2004 reported how a top gay porn star serviced the moguls at the Bohemian Grove. This 1914 Bohemian Grove annal has a swastika on its cover, and inside it talks about how they're a German death cult founded by the Illuminati. But some of you are saying, wait a minute, the Nazis invented the swastika. That was their symbol. You're talking about 1914 and 1920. My friends, the swastika was used by the Buddhists. It was used by Native Americans. It is a sun symbol, and it was used by Druids in Europe thousands of years ago. In the 1920s and 30s in the U.S., it was a symbol of good luck, like a horseshoe. But for the Nazis and members of the Bohemian Grove, it was a symbol of power. And Adolf Hitler was obsessed with the occult. The roots of Nazi Germany grew out of groups like the Thule and Thule Society, organizations obsessed with black magic, which themselves sprung from older organizations like the Illuminati. All of these groups corresponded and called themselves Orders of the Death's Head. Adolf Hitler was a member of the Thule Society. Here you see one of their publication covers from 1919. He took their symbol as the signet of his party. It has been reported that after Madame Blavatsky died, Aleister Crowley became the head of the German Illuminati, also known as the OTO. Aleister Crowley was called the most evil man alive because of the bloodthirsty rituals he engaged in. It's important to note that both of his children died in questionable circumstances. So should we be surprised that the leader of the Third Reich, who killed millions of people, was an adherent of both of these sickening individuals? The Waffen-SS were the henchmen of the Nazi Party, and they wore an aluminum or silver death's head on their hats. Here you have a famous field marshal of World War I, and adorning his headdress is a death's head. In reality, all of Hitler's actions were nothing more than a manifestation of the deepest and darkest dreams of the Order of Death. And remember that the Order of Skull and Bones of Bohemian Grove are nothing more than offshoots of this global movement. The Nazis wore a skull and crossbones on their hats. Compare that to the skull and bones symbol. And beneath that, an early Nazi party medal, not just with a swastika, but the 32 or 322 of skull and bones. We see these symbols throughout Nazi culture, especially on their icons and standards. Hitler believed that they drew power from these symbols, and he publicly talked about it. Here is an official photo taken from the Presidential Library of George Herbert Walker Bush, showing him standing with his classmates. And there it is, the Order of Death symbol, the skull and crossbones with 322 beneath it. Would it surprise you to know that one of the chief members of Bohemian Grove, Thomas Watson, was also an adherent of Adolf Hitler's ideology, and that international business machines were integral in controlling the death camps? IBM was absolutely essential in assisting Hitler in numbering and exterminating the Jews and other undesirables. The famous tattoos on Jews' arms were international business machine numbers that were entered into the computers. The computers would then decide how long to keep someone alive and how hard they could be worked according to height and body weight as well as age. Here's a photo of Mr. Watson with Adolf Hitler in the late 1930s. It's not a coincidence that today IBM is the backbone of national ID card technology in the United States and across the world. Ford and General Motors were also involved in the Nazi war machine right through the war, and not one of these robber baron industrialists was ever prosecuted. Here is the international business machine that calculated the deaths of millions. The modern Olympic symbols have nothing to do with Greece. They were drawn and designed by Adolf Hitler, and we still use them today. The order of the death's head symbols are all around us, but the general public is too blind to see it. Now we will explore how the American branch of the Illuminati aided and abetted Adolf Hitler, and how the Bushes were the first family when it came to treason.
I've been an investigative reporter and a journalist for 35 years. I've worked in every major media market in the United States, and I've written for more than 100 newspapers and magazines nationally and internationally. So last September 17th, I became the first journalist in U.S. history to go to the U.S. National Archives and the Library of Congress and pore over the thousands of pages of documents in both places to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt or any refutation of the facts that Prescott Bush, the grandfather of George W. Bush, and George Herbert Walker, his maternal great-grandfather for whom his daddy is named, were Nazi traitors to the country who should have been tried for treason. 2 weeks ago, in early August, a major world newspaper, The Guardian of London, finally got on the story internationally, and they flew a renowned reporter of theirs named Duncan Campbell over to Washington to take me back to the archives and Library of Congress so that they could verify that these explosive documents were real and I didn't have forged copies. Prescott Bush was the grandfather of George W. Bush and the father of George Herbert Walker Bush, and George Herbert Walker Bush is named for his father-in-law, George Herbert Walker. Prescott Bush graduated from Yale in 1917 and was in Skull and Bones with E. Rowland Harriman, who was the younger brother of W. Averill Harriman. The Bush family really had nothing going. They were essentially social climbers and opportunistic people. At the time that Prescott Bush met Dorothy Walker, he was a tire salesman. And George Herbert Walker, as all fathers do when their daughter's going to marry someone, said in his heart, you know, it's not an appropriate thing socially that my daughter marry a tire salesman. So he brought Prescott Bush first into Brown Brothers Harriman and then Union Banking Corporation. In actuality, it was anything but a bank. It was essentially a Nazi money laundering operation that had a lot of tentacles into a lot of different other businesses. They owned a shipping line called Hamburg American Line, for example, which was the first Nazi front business seized, although the line was no longer operational in 1942. In the early 1930s, it transported Nazi spies into the U.S., and then their promotional ads offered cash rewards to any American citizens who would go back on Hamburg American lines and proselytize for Hitler. 8 months after the U.S. had entered the war, the New York Herald Tribune ran a front-page article, "Hitler's Angel has $3 million in U.S. bank." And it caused a major scandal and just rocked the world of politics. Brown Brothers Harriman, which George Herbert Walker and Prescott Bush were affiliated with and partners in, worked with I.G. Farben, which operated Auschwitz. Prescott Bush, he did a number of things that were not only anti-American but were pro-Hitler, and he did all that he could to proselytize for Hitler and the rise of his Third Reich, because the largest client, Fritz Thyssen, of his patron, W. Averill Harriman, dictated what kind of behavior he would practice to enhance his own career. So he was put on the board of directors of Union Banking Corporation, and he was also a shareholder in Union Banking Corporation along with E. Rowland Harriman. But what's interesting about what the documents show is that they clearly state that all of the shareholders were phantom shareholders for Fritz Thyssen and did his bidding directly. So the point I'm making is it's not as if they bought these shares of stock as a passive investment to hopefully profit from the war. They were directly doing the bidding of the individual who built the Nazi war machine. Some very shocking documents that I saw at the Library of Congress 2 weeks ago on August 10th. On August 9th, excuse me, had to do with the hearings of the McCormick-Dickstein Committee of November 1934, show that Prescott Bush and the DuPont family, the Remington family, and J.P. Morgan tried to overthrow the U.S. government, assassinate FDR, and put a Hitler-style fascist state in place. I have in my possession testimony from the McCormick-Dickstein Committee in November of 1934 by one of the fascist plotters that they were going to follow Hitler's model exactly and impose martial law on the United States, round up unemployed people that were worthless to the economy and troublemakers and Jews and put them into internment camps. And their plan was, if necessary, to exterminate the people that could not be part of the effort. The only reason the coup attempt in 1934 didn't succeed is that they hired the wrong general to lead it, General Smedley Butler, the great Marine hero, two-time Congressional Medal of Honor winner, who worked with the plotters just long enough to be able to identify who they were and then blew the whistle on them to Congress. Incredibly, after being warned by the FBI and the Justice Department and the Treasury Department to cease and desist in their Nazi dealings, they had continued them until 1951. There had been 28 additional seizures of Nazi assets and Nazi business fronts between late 1942 and 1951, and that they had moved Nazi assets into Switzerland, Brazil, Argentina, and Panama, and they had continued to do business with their primary Nazi patron, who was Fritz Thyssen, who backed Hitler beginning in 1921 and who was the wealthiest man in Germany, and a steel and coal baron who, with his partner Friedrich Flick, essentially built the Nazi war machine along with I.G. Farben. In 1951, when Fritz Thyssen died in Argentina, Union Banking Corporation was liquidated by the U.S. government, and Prescott Bush received $1.5 million for his holdings in his Nazi business, and that was the beginning of the Bush family fortune for all intents and purposes. George Bush doesn't take his philosophical foundation from the Bible or the teachings of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. George Bush takes his inspiration from what he learned in Skull and Bones and from the Thule Society that Hitler and Goebbels and Goring cut their teeth in, Bohemian Grove, these evil organizations that perpetrate the ugly things that these criminals are doing to this country, for which they must be held accountable. Now you look at the Republican National Convention this week and you bring in Arnold Schwarzenegger to speak last night. Schwarzenegger is the son of a Nazi. He has praised Nazis. He has praised Hitler. He talked last night in terms like, we will not falter, we will not waver, we will win this war on terror.
He's a leader who doesn't flinch, who doesn't waver, and does not back down.
Well, that's exactly the speeches that Hitler made after the Reichstag fire. Terrorism and the homeland being under attack are precisely the issues that Hitler used to subvert everything within the German system of government. This is a criminal regime. They not only emulate Hitler, but its genesis comes from Hitler. And I defy anyone, a historian, journalist, author, anyone, to come forward and disprove my premise that you cannot differentiate Hitler's invasion of Poland in 1939 and the Reichstag fire and his attempt to dominate the world from George W. Bush's unprovoked invasion of Iraq and subversion of the Constitution through the Patriot Act after 9/11, which I submit is his Reichstag fire. Karl Rove and his minions are every bit the masters of propaganda that Joseph Goebbels was. They literally took lessons from Goebbels and Goring about how to create such brilliant propaganda that unreality can become reality, and reality can be subverted to fantasy, political subterfuge right before your eyes. So there's just an endless broken record that is leading up to the present era, that the Bush family has had a single goal for 100 years, which is to become the most powerful family on the planet and to rule the world. And they are on the verge of doing that under George W. Bush. It's critical that every citizen of this country rise up and do something, because the day of reckoning is at hand, and these people are Nazis. They are practicing Nazi philosophy. They are mimicking Nazi tactics, and time is running out.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee. And, look, I look forward...
Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret. Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code? I wish there were something secret I could manifest. 322, secret number? There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing is not a secret. I disagree with this president's direction.
Most people don't know the Order of Skull and Bones at Yale is simply one chapter in a larger global organization known by many as the Illuminati. Its symbol is a skull and crossbones and the number 322. Skull and Bones is the name used by the uninitiated or non-members. The true name of the organization is the Order of Death or the Order of the Death's Head. George Bush and John Kerry have both been initiated in the same way. They swore an oath to the tomb, to the order of death above all others, and to wage eternal war against all of humanity. In April of 2001, ABC News was able to get a few minutes of video of a small portion of the ritual that's conducted outside in a courtyard. What they witnessed was macabre, chants of death equals death and devil equals death, accompanied by mock human sacrifices. President Taft was a prominent member of Skull and Bones, and in 1900 he became the first president to visit Bohemian Grove in Northern California, a satellite of Skull and Bones. For 3 generations, the Bushes have been members of Skull and Bones, and for 3 generations they've traveled to Northern California and the Bohemian Grove. There are many prominent foreigners, like German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt. Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon are pictured here in 1957 at the Bohemian Grove. Both men wrote about the organization in their public memoirs. Schwarzenegger is a reported visitor to the Bohemian Grove, as well as former President Jimmy Carter.
So we're back. Okay, so the video isn't done yet. I'm not done with the video. We're wrapping it up, but I just wanted to jump in here and I wanted you guys to just basically see like everything that they're doing there, everything that has everything to do with them and nothing to do with you. All the moves they're making around the earth, all the people who's backstabbed those that they said they were serving. Like everybody is like playing this dog eat dog world, you know, because it's like it's a survival battle at this point. Who's in the position to please Satan, Lilith, all of these bad demons, you know. So we've been through a lot as people, and they're continuing to divide us because it's easier for them to knock everybody off if they keep people divided. Now, like I said, I'm not into the whole, oh, well, everybody, because everybody is not going to come together. However, Yah has already did the sorting process, and it's already begun. Little do you know, just like they're doing theirs, he's doing his. So however they make their moves, Yah making his moves. He's already given everything that we need to know in the scriptures. And you guys just have to dig into it in order for you guys to know exactly what's sitting there on the surface and reading it. Yeah, you can get a percentage of understanding from that. I'm not saying that what the surface words are saying are just like obsolete. You shouldn't deal with them. No. And I had to learn that also the hard way because I found myself to be wrong because I didn't believe at first either because it was so complicated to just understand what's being written there, you know? But cheers, because if you ask Yah, he will reveal it to you. I guarantee you. Now, if you guys just think you're going to go in there and be like having this conversation with Yah and you think, oh yeah, deep down in your heart, you just want to try to prove somebody wrong, start some mess and all that stuff instead of just actually teaching people what you are learning, what's being revealed to you, then shame on you and that'll be your judgment. Like, people have to be very sure about who they choose to point the finger at, call crazy, call a liar, say they're saying one thing because you understand it that way and that's not what the actual message was. Even after they have given you substantial proof, it doesn't even matter. So, I hope you guys understand clear, good, and well what's being said here, what's happening at this place, here on this soil that they call the US of A. They're making business deals. They're making plots to do harm to people. And the scriptures has already said about all these sacrifices that they are doing, even to the children. Now, I was going to touch on some more scriptures, but I have so many of them, I might as well just hold off some for part 2. So, without further ado, I'm not going to keep you long. I'm going to wrap up the rest of this video, and I will be back for the last part of my commentary.
While in New York, we ran into the Karl Rove of 4 administrations. David Gergen, top presidential advisor to Ford, Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush, and Bill Clinton. We couldn't believe our luck. It just so happens that David Gergen is also a prominent member of the Bohemian Grove, the offshoot of Skull and Bones. This insider of insiders, a staple of the White House for 22 years, got very upset when we brought up Bohemian Grove to him. He didn't deny its existence. He didn't deny that he was a member. He didn't deny the rituals. He just became angry and didn't act very gentlemanly.
The real wild card here are the demonstrators. We just don't know where this is going to go. While they were peaceful today, there's a lot more anger among those demonstrators than is evident. You talk to them today, they're pretty angry people. So that's the big wild card.
Hey, Mr. Gergen, can we talk to you for a second?
Where are you from?
I'm Alex Jones. I have a TV show in Austin. I make documentaries. Just a few questions about the convention.
Yeah, well, is there a camera or are you?
Yeah, right there, just about. Yeah, I just want to get your permission first. Here.
Okay, it's local. I've got.
No, I understand. Just about a minute or two.
Okay, great.
We're talking to David Gergen, and he has advised several presidents and, of course, has written quite a few books and is I would call you a political pundit or researcher?
Commentary at Over the Hill, whatever.
Okay. How long you been in New York?
About 4 hours.
What do you think of this circus?
Well, I haven't seen all the protests yet, but I've never seen as much security for a convention as we have here. And it's, the city's almost closed down. I think it's remarkable. I think it's an unfortunate turn for politics that we have to have this many police around.
There's been a lot of news articles and reports saying that there's a heightened risk of terror attacks. Do you think that's? Do you think there's a chance of that, or comments?
Well, listen, they just arrested. I think they're broken up some plot allegedly to somebody wanted to blow up subways. Yeah, I think it's a very real danger, and you've got. Madison Square Garden is sitting right, basically on top of a train station, and Boston Convention was right on top of a train station. Yeah, I just have to remember that trains are very accessible, vulnerable, and that's what happened in Spain. They went after trains and they blew some trains up, and it wasn't very expensive. So I think there's that danger, but I think the police are on top of it. They're treating this as a special security event, which means there's not only the obvious police around, but believe me, there's a lot of private stuff going on here.
Okay, one last question. I read a Washington Times article many years ago where you had a comment about the organization, and then now it's been in the Wall Street Journal, it's been in a lot of different newspapers, and that's the Bohemian Grove. And back in, 1996, when you joined as a Clinton advisor, the Republicans were criticizing you, oh, what about Bohemian Grove? And then you countered them by saying, hey, I don't run around in the woods naked. What did that mean? Here is the before-mentioned Washington Times article where he said, I didn't run around naked like they do.
I don't know what quote you're referring to. I'm not aware of any quote like that. Listen, I am a happy member of the Bohemian Grove. I like the folks who come there, and it's really inappropriate for me to talk about the group beyond that. Thank you.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about.
Great owl of Bohemia, we thank thee for thy adjuration.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about.
Really?
That's right.
Well, I'm Alex Jones, and I snuck in there in 2000. I'm the guy that blew it wide open and got the video. It's been on national TV.
Well, I disrespect you for that.
You do?
I do.
But it's a lot of big public officials going in there. Don't we deserve to know?
I don't know anything about you, and I don't know anything about your film. But if you go in there with an understanding, you violated that understanding by releasing that film, and I don't respect you for that.
Really? But we have public officials.
I'm sorry, you took an understanding when you went in there that you would not do that film. And did you have an understanding when you went in there?
No.
Did you crash it?
Yes.
Yeah, and it has no trespassing signs there too, doesn't it?
No, they put them up after.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
just walked in.
I'm sorry, sir. I've been there before. I know what the circumstances are, and I'm sorry you violated the understandings. That was not a gentlemanly thing to do.
But what about the ritual? Is the ritual gentlemanly?
Sir, everything I don't owe you this comment.
I know. I appreciate it.
This is what's called ambush journalism, and I disrespect you for that as well. So thank you and goodbye.
Been in the ritual?
That's none of your damn business.
Oh,
that's right. Listen. You go around and make understandings with people and violate them. You ambush people on the streets, and that's inappropriate form of journalism. If you wish to practice that, that's fine, but don't ask others to respect you for it. If you want to, you can do. You're a free American, like anything you want. If you want to be uncivil and rude and ungentlemanly, that's up to you. But don't expect the rest of us to say, "Oh well, you're
there, Mr. Gergen."
I'm sorry, nobody sets policy in there. We try to be gentlemen, and obviously, you don't belong there.
Weaving spiders come out here.
Did y'all see how angry he got? Seriously. Did you guys really see how angry he got? Now, had this not been true, by far to no degree, he would not have been that angry. Notice when you hit the truth and you ask the right questions, how uneasy it disturbs a person's spirit, because they are good at wanting to mock you behind your back, on TV, through a song, through a movie. But then when you are coming and presenting them with the right questions in regard to what you have witnessed, all of a sudden, I'm not gonna. Woo! Okay? So, whether this guy, Alex Jones, is a part of what they're doing or not, I do not know. I think they had an interest in him. That's why they allowed him to come in, for sure, most definitely. So, while he's exposing them, the question mark is still up about him, too. You know, if you're going to blame them, I don't know what he got going on, but I do know they did take his channel down off of YouTube. I do know that they did a lot of little stuff to him just recently, and I don't know. I mean, he's to a point right now where he doesn't necessarily need any other finances or another platform or whatever he chooses to do from this point. I don't know. But I do know that was some good footage. I do know that was funny as okay, to just like catch that politician on his crap. So I did well with making sure my tongue was cleansed this time. Like, you know, not to be loading everybody up with curse words. I know some people are like, oh my goodness, curse words. And, you know, we've been down that road, you guys. It's going to be a hit and miss on my channel. So I'm expecting you guys to have, not no kids around. I would just say that. I mean, that's a level of concern. Or you feel like you can't ingest that and that you're just so, good or whatever, that you don't really understand how some people express themselves. You know, it's a heck of a challenge to suppress something as far as like, you know, cursing and everything, curse words, if that's what you guys want to call it. Although I've been down that road. But like I said, I'm going to show you guys, and this is not to like be a smart ass or anything. That's not my intention, about curse words, exactly like what they mean, because I've been reading them while I have been revealing I've been unclothing the surface of the Bible, and you would see down in there that there are words there that people use every day that they call curse words. So now let's get to the very, very, very last bit of this video. And like I said, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe, and make sure you hit the bell. And when you see the parentheses around it, then you know that you are reminded for every single video that I post, when I post it. And make sure you guys take care of yourselves. love on one another, love thy neighbor as themselves, and try to work on your heart. So let's get back to the end of this video. Love you guys.
Thank you, and goodbye.
The ritual?
It's none of your damn business. It's none of your damn business.
Oh,
That's right. Listen, listen.
Just look at him. That's a face keeping a lot of secrets. He's got some stories to tell. And remember that Washington Times article? It talked about all the other organizations that he resigned from. It mentions the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, all of them groups dedicated to setting up a world government and destroying American sovereignty.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society. It's so secret we can't talk about it. What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild. I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web. Number 322?
Aleister Crowley, who dubbed himself the Beast and the most evil man alive, was a fellow traveler with some of the most powerful people in British society, including prominent royals. The Church of Satan, the Temple of Set, the OTO, the Golden Dawn, Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove, the Blue Lodge, the Scottish Rite, the 33rd Degree. It seems like there are hundreds of different occultic groups, but all they are different denominations in the same religion, the Egyptian and Babylonian mystery schools. Albert Pike, who was the supreme Grand Mason of the entire world, founded the Ku Klux Klan. But you don't hear Jesse Jackson calling for his statue to be removed in Washington, D.C. Why is that? Because Jesse Jackson is a 33rd degree Mason. Now don't get me wrong, most Masons are what high-level occultists call porch Masons or outsiders. They themselves are considered neophytes by those in the inner circle or those nearer the top of the pyramid. They're compartmentalized. They believe that their great work, as they call it, is to help society. But in reality, they're being controlled and manipulated. The Knights of the Secret Circle, the Knights of the Golden Circle. This is what high-level KKK members call themselves. But even low-level KKK members do not understand that the KKK itself is part of a larger Masonic organization. Most Masons detest the Klan, but they've never looked on their own temple walls at the paintings of Albert Pike that adorn them and asked themselves why the founder of the Klan is hanging in their temple. This is the power of hidden in plain view, a favorite trick of Luciferians. Where did this dark thinking start? This black spirituality? The central thread goes back to ancient Egypt and Babylon with the mystery schools. They knew that knowledge is power, and so secret societies were formed to guard the secrets of medicine, architecture, government, agriculture. Secret societies are nothing more than the first intelligence agencies. Knowledge had to be guarded, but over time, elites abused their control of the knowledge and used it to dominate their populations. And the same sciences of control are being used today. That's why the elite today relishes secrecy. They know that it is the fount of their power. They seek to dumb down the population, not just to hoard their secret knowledge to make us even more mindless, more domesticated, like braying sheep to the slaughter. Their religion is the science of sophistry, the science of the con artist, the science of the despot, the dictator, the tyrant, the controller, the charlatan, the liar. They come to kill, steal, and destroy. They are parasites. They are anathema to free, dynamic human societies. Know your enemy. Stand up for love and life and family and resist the New World Order and the Babylonian slave state our enemies are attempting to